Things are getting even bigger for the Nintendo Switch 2 in Japan as we've got some new updates when it comes to Pokemon Legends ZA, Donkey Kong Bananza, the Nintendo Switch 2 itself, and so much more in Japan and other places. So let's go ahead and jump right into this massive news for the system with the Nintendo Switch 2 and Pokemon Legends ZA. Shout out to my man Stealth. He actually captured some of the excitement that we're seeing right now with the system that leads to a lot of, I would probably say, false information when it comes to what some other people are saying about the system in Japan with the most recent sales. So let's go ahead and get into it first, and we'll kind of dissect everything else. So Stealth on Twitter says Pokemon Legends ZA is currently the best-selling game on Amazon Japan over the holidays. Pokemon and Dragon Quest are going to drive Switch 2 sales in Japan, and I have to 100% agree when it comes to it. Pokemon and Dragon Quest are going to be huge. There's going to be a Pokemon bundle in Japan as well. Also worldwide, there's going to be a Pokemon Legends ZA bundle, but I want to talk about what's going on here overall, because with the Nintendo Switch 2 in Japan, you're quite literally seeing a domination here. Pokemon Legends ZA, interesting, the Nintendo Switch 2 version is above the Nintendo Switch 1 version, despite the Nintendo Switch 1 having a significantly bigger install base over the Nintendo Switch 2. So that tells you there's a lot of people that are getting ready to probably transition over to the Nintendo Switch 2 in Japan. Probably don't even have the system yet, but are anticipating it. Now, there's still people that have the Switch 1 are going to play it on there because clearly it's number 2, but seeing that the significantly smaller install base above the bigger install base, that tells me that there's going to be a lot of people that are saying, okay, this will be the game that I'm going to move over to with the Nintendo Switch 2. Another thing that you see here when it comes to the breakdown is that the Nintendo Switch 2, you have it in 2 spots, in at number 3 and in at number 6 with the standard Nintendo Switch 2 in addition to the Mario Kart bundle. Then you've got 2 versions of Donkey Kong Bananza, the actual physical, and it looks like the digital version of the game. So the top 6 spots, all the Nintendo Switch 2. Now, one of the interesting things that I saw other content creators and people trying to say after Donkey Kong Bananza launched, oh, the sales weren't good enough, or it's not going to save it in Japan. And if you look at the Nintendo Switch 2 in Japan and the sales overall, if that system flops, or if the Nintendo Switch 2 is not doing good, or whatever people want to make up, then the Japanese game industry is essentially dead, because in the last Famitsu sales, the next closest system outside of the Nintendo Switch 1 at 11,000 units was the PlayStation 5 at around 6,000 units. So if the Nintendo Switch 2 doesn't do well, it's not like the PlayStation 5 is pulling the mantle or is holding up the Japanese game industry. If you look at all of the top 30 in sales, most of it is Nintendo Switch 1 or Nintendo Switch 2 titles. So I do think that's a stretch to flat out lying to sit there and say Donkey Kong needed to save, or it's not going to save the Nintendo Switch 2. That's just an insane logic, especially considering the Nintendo Switch 2 in Japan sold over 152,000 units. That is 10 to 15 times more than any other platform in Japan for the past week, with Donkey Kong launching on it. Now, another thing that you have to note here, guys, is that the Nintendo Switch 2, it's so popular now in Japan with a game like Mario Kart World, it doesn't need Donkey Kong Bananza, or it doesn't need Metroid Prime 4 to come out and sell 10 million copies, or sell as much as Super Mario Odyssey as some people were trying to claim. That game sold around 460,000 plus units in Japan, physical only, when it launched back in 2017 October, but Mario Kart World has already came out at the launch and sold over 780,000 units on the Nintendo Switch 2. So they already have that massive, big system selling type of hit. And actually, if you look at it this way, you can combine the debut sales of The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild in Japan and Super Mario Odyssey, and that doesn't even surpass the debut sales of Mario Kart World in Japan. So anyone that's trying to push this narrative that Donkey Kong Bonanza was supposed to be some type of game to save the Nintendo Switch 2 in Japan, that's just silly when Mario Kart World already did big and is consistently doing big and has now passed over 1.5 million units just physical, not including the digital eShop sales. And that's actually better than even the entirety of Mario Kart 8 on the Wii U. So to me, Donkey Kong Bonanza was never a game that needed to come out and do some type of crazy number over Mario Odyssey, even though Mario Odyssey did launch multiple months after the Nintendo Switch 1 came out, so there was a bit of a bigger install base. But the one thing is that it never needed to do that. All they needed to do was have a great game that's going to continue momentum and get more people to buy the system, and we saw that. They had a restock, it sold 150,000 units plus. That's actually above what the Nintendo Switch 1 did when Mario Odyssey came out, because Mario Odyssey, when that came out in 2017, the Nintendo Switch 1 did 126,000 units. So it actually pushed things a bit above what we saw then. So that's the whole thing here. It's about building a great audience. It's about building up what you have overall, and it's about consistently getting games that are going to help build that library and get more people to be interested in the system. Pokemon Legends ZA is coming out. That's going to be another massive game. Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment, Kirby Air Riders, Metroid Prime 4, and continuing to build a big library for the Nintendo Switch 2 to entice more people to pick up the system. And that's kind of how it's always been when it comes to Nintendo platforms. You get a lot of cool games over the course of time, and the more and more games that it gets, the more people decide, okay, I'm going to pick up the system now that this game is out. Donkey Kong was that game for many people out there. Here in the US, we also have really good sales of the game. It's #1 on Amazon and has been #1 for quite some time. And that's with the Nintendo Switch 2 having a smaller install base than what we see on PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series. Now, more people buy physical overall on Nintendo platforms than anything else, but Donkey Kong Bonanza is doing more than good, and I can't wait to see the actual sales numbers when Nintendo kind of breaks down and details it in their investor reports. So what do you guys think about the big update when it comes to Pokemon Legends ZA and Nintendo Switch 2 in Japan? Let me know in the comment section. But before we get into the next topic, please make sure you hit that subscribe button if you're someone new, hit that like button, and click that notification bell to get my vids as soon as they drop. And let me know what big Nintendo Switch 2 game you're looking forward to most in the comment section below. All right, let's go ahead and jump into this next topic here, because we have to discuss Daemon x Machina, Titanic, Scion, and what is happening. Gematsu recently did an incredible interview with the developers, although I wish they would have talked more about maybe what the Nintendo Switch 2 differences is compared to the Xbox Series and PS5, and maybe that was a question that they asked, but they just didn't want to write that one down, or they said that, hey, look, we're not going to talk about that. But either way, it was still a great interview. So I'm going to link it for you guys. And in this interview, they go over a variety of different things with the game. They talk about the open world. They talk about the multiplayer. They talk about the enemies, the skill system, and so much more. But the coolest thing, or at least more like one of the coolest things in there, was that you can play the game from start to finish cooperatively with friends all the way through. So anytime, drop in, drop out, playing with friends. And they have a cool system to match ups. Like, let's say you want to match up with people around your level or not, but yeah, you can just hop right in. And I found that to be pretty crazy. Here was the question from Gematsu to Kenshiro Tsukuda, who's the series producer. Quote, with co-op confirmed for the main campaign, can the full story be played through with 3 players, or are there limitations to which missions support multiplayer? Here's what he had to say. Quote, there are no restrictions at all. Everything is playable in co-op. However, while players at higher levels can sync to those at lower level players will not be able to join the games of higher level players. This is because most players prefer to avoid spoilers and don't want to jump ahead in these stories. Now, they also answered more questions on multiplayer, asking this question first. Asynchronous multiplayer is also new to the series. Can you elaborate on how it functions? Will players encounter shared events, custom challenges, or ongoing threats? Tsukuda said this, quote, the entire story can be enjoyed in co-op, so you can face all enemy threats and in-game events with other players. Through asynchronous multiplayer, players can create bases in the open world that other players can interact with. You can access the same functions at these bases out in the field as you would be able to at your own home base. Additionally, if you find another player's wreckage out in the world, you can obtain items or equipment from them. The player who fell in battle doesn't lose these items if another player takes them. That means that even if you die in the game, you'll still be helping someone out, which makes for a more carefree and enjoyable experience. There are other features as well, but we'll discuss those at a later time. Now, they also discuss the open world and organic enemies and so much more. But the main point of me even talking about this is that Daemon x Machina is going to be a double A-ish higher end type of hit, in my opinion. I love the original game, but things were kind of held back just a little bit on the Nintendo Switch 1, although it was a very ambitious game and a very fun game once once you got into it. But Daemon X Machina Titanic Scion looks to kind of take things up to the next level overall with what they're doing with the multiplayer, the single player. You can play it all the way through. You don't have to play multiplayer. The enemies, the combat, the visuals, everything just looks super good in this game. And I also want to talk about this because this is another one of the games that's actually not a game key card here in the West. Now in Japan, it will be a game key card, but here in the West, United States, and Europe, it's going to actually be a physical game on a 64 gigabyte cartridge. So they cut costs somewhere, and that was going to be Japan, so Japan can import the game if they want the actual physical copy. So just like Rune Factory Guardians of Azuma, you're going to be able to get that full game on the cartridge. So that is definitely a good thing. So something that needs to be talked about a little bit more. There was also a developer interview series that they've done with some new footage as well. So I'm going to be covering this game more as it gets closer and closer to the release date of it. It does launch September 5th worldwide on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series S and X, Nintendo Switch 2, and PC via Steam. So it's coming up pretty soon here. We're going to start getting more information on the game. I plan on playing it, checking it out, live streaming, all that good stuff. So what do you guys think about Daemon X Machina Titanic Scion and what they're doing with the multiplayer and the game? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, and moving on to the next topic here. We've got some more Borderlands 4 updates. We got some Rafa gameplay so we can get to know Rafa, the Exo Soldier. So publisher 2K and developer Gearbox Software have released a new Rafa gameplay overview trailer for Borderlands 4. Here's some more details on Rafa. In the Rafa gameplay overview, you can learn more about how he masterfully wields the cutting-edge weaponry stored in his dread frame exosuit. The former Theodore Trooper is ready for fights at any distance, whether he's slicing through enemies at melee range with his twin arc knives, perforating mid-range targets with his Peacebreaker cannons, or blasting holes through multiple enemies with charged up rounds from his Apopis lance. Borderlands 4 is due out for the PlayStation 5, Xbox Series, and PC via Steam and Epic Games Store on September 12th, followed by the Nintendo Switch 2 release on October 3rd. And we do have some more details on the Nintendo Switch 2 release. If you missed it, Randy Pitchford came out and said that the Nintendo Switch 2 version of the game, it's a big game, so it's probably going to need a download. So we're looking at a game key card situation for the physical version. When it comes to the game itself, we're looking also at 30 FPS with some dips. Now the game does run at 60 FPS on PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series, and maybe even higher depending on the rig that you have with the PC. So keep that in mind if you're deciding on what version to get. The Nintendo Switch 2 version is going to be about a month later, a little bit less than that, and it's not going to have quite up to the performance of the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series versions, which I didn't really expect it to be that either. But 30 FPS with dips with Nintendo Switch 2, with the DLSS, and kind of what it offers, I'm not so sure about that. So we're going to have to wait and see the quality of it. Now, of course, if you're a big Borderlands fan, you probably might want to play it on PlayStation 5 or PS5 Pro or Xbox, whatever you have there. I think it's going to be a great experience. Now, me personally, I've never been someone to go out there and buy Borderlands, at least in recent memory, like with Borderlands 3 and some of the previous ones. I don't go out there and buy it day one. The last time I did that was Borderlands 1, and I think maybe Borderlands 2, I got it within the first month or so, but I know that I haven't been for the last number of the spin-offs and some of the other games. I don't rush out there and buy them day one. Borderlands has always been more of like a discounted type of game for me in recent memory, but I know for many other people, Borderlands gives you a lot of content. It's worth the money right there at launch for many people. They play with their friends. They like to play co-op throughout the whole thing, come home from work and play it. So there's still a lot of value in Borderlands. There's going to be a lot of content. It's never been a game known to not have enough content for the money that you're paying. So I still feel that for some who want to be able to get that extra performance, go ahead and pick it up on the PlayStation 5. But if you want to be able to play it anywhere that you want so you can actually get more time in with the game, depending on your lifestyle, then the Nintendo Switch 2 version, it might be something worth considering despite the performance not quite being up to the other games. But once again, we'll have to wait and see exactly what those dips are and like how frequent they are and kind of what happens with that to see the quality of the game, the visuals, all of that stuff. But even with these potential issues, I still think that Borderlands 4 is a good game to have on the Nintendo Switch 2 in the first year. It's a very interesting and different type of game with cooperative multiplayer shooter aspects. In addition to being able to play by yourself, it's got a very interesting hook when it comes to the amount of guns that you can have, the variety of enemies, and how big this game is going to be. Pretty much in a seamless open world, it looks like, or very open-ended overall. So I do think that it's a good game to have in that first year, and it's something that the Nintendo Switch 1 sorely lacked in its first calendar year when it comes to games. They didn't have something like this. We had to wait years before Borderlands came over. So seeing it already within the first year of the system's launch is definitely a good thing and a good sign for other developers that are looking to port their big games over to Nintendo Switch 2. So we'll see how that works out. But yeah, if you're interested in Borderlands 4, got some more gameplay here for you guys, and it's looking pretty good overall. Looks kind of crazy like Borderlands always looks. It's a series that I usually get around to. I still need to play the Tiny Tina's game. Haven't played that yet. I have it, but I haven't played it. But what do you guys think overall about everything that we discussed here? There was a lot between Pokemon Legends ZA, Nintendo Switch 2, the lying thought process that we're seeing here when it comes to Donkey Kong Bonanza and the Japanese Switch 2 sales. Let me know in the comment section below. Alright guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and check out my other Nintendo Switch 2 RPG content and more right here on screen. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace.